Hello, friends. If you want to be happy, then be it. This is a wise phrase, an aphorism that I read in the book Kozma Protkov. This aphorism, in my opinion, contains a very important hidden meaning. What does it mean? If a person really wants something, then he will certainly achieve everything. If you want to be happy, then just be it. Decide for yourself whether you will be happy or unhappy. Surely you have met people who look very gloomy, unhappy. Nothing works out for them in life. But there are other people. Those who look happy, smiling, good-natured from birth. They seem to have swallowed the sun, radiant, smiling, bright. Their smile glows, and by the evening the facial muscles even hurt a little from constant smiling, the joy that such people radiate. They are literally happy from birth, happy by nature, happy without any stress or effort. Agree, everyone would like to have such an innate gift, the ability to enjoy the little things. But nature in this sense is quite stingy and does not throw away such a gift. And if, for example, you were not lucky enough to be born initially happy, then is it possible to somehow fix this? Of course, you can, but you need to work on it. If you were not born with a feeling of inner happiness, then you will have to learn to create this happiness, learn to be happy. You see, the biological characteristics of our body suggest surges of pleasure hormones, hormones of happiness, which affect our neurons in the brain at special moments in our lives. For example, you have a child, you feel happy, you have succeeded in something. There is a surge of hormones of joy, neurotransmitters in the brain responsible for pleasant sensations. And usually people regard their happiness as short-term sensations, temporary, pinpoint moments in our lives. Some say so, I was happy only a few times in my life, and name specific events that they remember. But with this approach, our whole life turns into a continuous nightmare with rare moments, bursts of happiness. We ourselves begin to arrange these bursts artificially. We arrange trips to the store, buy ourselves something expensive and desirable, overeat or drink alcohol, cigarettes. All this, unfortunately, is artificial happiness, induced. This is a kind of doping to maintain some acceptable level of pleasant emotions. But, like everything artificial, such stimulation, ultimately, does not bring us long-term and permanent happiness. An alcoholic can only get the necessary concentration of neurotransmitters in the brain when taking another dose of alcohol. But then comes the inevitable payback, a hangover. Everything in our body works according to the mechanism of negative feedback. If there are too many of some substances, then inevitably the resource of its own, natural substances for maintaining the brain in the norm will be depleted. Nothing good comes from drinking alcohol, tobacco, or other chemicals. Modern marketing imposes millions of different pleasures on us. Take a fabulous extreme tour, try our new flavor, or play in our casino. Scrolling social networks and watching TV series. All this is an attempt to cause you to be addicted to pleasures, gambling addiction, to cause short-term bursts of joy. But they will not make you happy in the long run, they will not ensure that you fulfill that very long-term happy life. The psychological attitude that our life is boring and uninteresting, that there is routine, everyday life, and there are some powerful short-term pleasures, moments of happiness, is vicious. By the way, this is what some commentators argued with under my other video about people who love to travel and are proud of their travels. I argued that such avid travelers or activists inevitably have psychological problems. If a person is uncomfortable at home, if he constantly wants to go somewhere, migrate, travel, get away from the usual, then there is no norm in this, it is rather a moderate pathology. The norm is to love your homeland, the place where you live, here and now. The video is called, Why Do Unhappy People Travel a Lot? Why Are Travel and Tourism Too Overrated? Thus, to become happy, you need to learn to work for the long term, learn to perceive your life not as a strip of boring routine with periodic bursts of joy and happiness, but as a continuous strip of joy, sometimes replaced by isolated troubles in the form of separate unpleasant dots on this strip of happiness. Everyone decides for themselves what to consider a dash and what a dot. Unfortunately, many people regard happiness as short-term strong bursts of emotion, that is, dots, and unhappiness as a dash. But real happiness is, on the contrary, a routine, long-term efforts, work on yourself, on relationships with loved ones and people. It is important to build a situation where you are always happy, a priori, by definition. When happiness is a dash and not dots. And only sometimes your constant happiness is disrupted by some minor and major life troubles. In one of my old videos, I already talked about 3 key and specific ways that help overcome any difficulties and make any person happy. I will leave a link to it. The video is called, How to Be Happy. 3 Main Rules for Happiness. Today I want to once again touch on the topic of justice and the understanding of justice by most people, because these concepts are associated with the worldview and feeling of happiness. To become happy, you need to give up this obsession, the fight for justice. It is worth accepting the fact that a single justice for everyone does not initially exist in nature, in our world. By default, from the first second of our life. Some people are born poor, some are born rich, some are healthy, some are sick, some are smart, with good abilities, and some are not. And who should we make claims to? The world is unfair from the start. The differences embedded in us begin to affect our subsequent lives more and more over time. We speak different languages, live in countries with different levels of prosperity, receive unequal education, earn unequal salaries. Why shouldn't we seek justice? Simply because it doesn't exist. And if you spend your life and your efforts chasing something that doesn't exist in nature, then you will never become a truly happy person. Of course, justice is sometimes present in life, but it is always relative. It depends on the point of view of the one who is discussing this justice. Absolute justice does not exist at the micro level, but only in the global sense. Life will always end in death, and this is the highest universal justice. Globally, at the end of any story, of course, justice will prevail. So, it is worth honestly admitting that we are all doomed to live in an initially unfair world. Moreover, this world is based only on injustice. The biology of life is built exclusively on diversity, and monotony, analogous to universal equality, is, on the contrary, destructive and poses threats. An absolutely fair world, if it existed, would be doomed to monotony and the absence of evolutionary transformations. But fortunately, the world is unfair. If you come to terms with this fact, the fact of the absence of uniform justice for everyone, then you will take the first step towards your permanent happiness. For example, consider any family, relationships in everyday life and in family life. If you constantly look for who owes whom, who earned how much money, who cooked cutlets or washed plates, did laundry or cleaned, then you will never build a happy family. The principle should be simple: whoever likes what more, does it. If, for example, a woman does not like to wash dirty dishes in the sink, then her husband does it. If he likes to do it more. But she likes, for example, to wash and clean, wash the floors. Everyone does what seems important and necessary to him at the moment. This is the only way to become happy. No one needs to be forced to do anything, to beg or persuade, to quarrel over minor everyday issues. Love and happiness are an exclusively voluntary matter. In a happy family, everything happens naturally, without quarrels and without coercion. It is useless to persuade or scold someone. If a person is truly interested in a happy and prosperous family, he will find something that requires more of his efforts. In a happy family, no one starts family quarrels, does not seek to fight for justice. It is stupid to fight for something that does not exist in nature. Now let's talk about justice at work. You work hard, you work diligently, and next to you, at the next table in the office, sits, for example, the son of the boss and works carelessly, poorly. Unfair. Of course, it is unfair, but only on the micro level. And if you think about it, any normal parent, if given the opportunity, will try to arrange a better life for their child, give them more material benefits. It is normal, it is natural that someone tries to advance their relatives and close people up the career ladder, if this does not violate formal laws. And you would most likely do the same in their place. You can reassure yourself that if the child is smart, sensible, then he will get along well without the help of his parents, but if he is unadapted, stupid, untalented, then no amount of parental care will ultimately help him. He will definitely spend both his wealth and his position as soon as his parents can no longer help him. That is, in this case, justice will definitely prevail someday. It is only a matter of time. There is a misunderstanding of these simple truths among ordinary people, which gives rise to envy, hatred of the rich. For example, the habit of blaming officials, rich people for all their troubles. They say that deputies, officials earn a lot, but in fact, if you think about it, this is also fair. Simply because building a career as an official requires the ability to take responsibility for a large number of people, the ability to adapt, solve problems. All this is a huge amount of work, and a superficial look will not allow you to notice all the costs that a person, an official or even a corrupt official bears on their career path. In order to become happy yourself, you should not pay attention to those who work little and earn a lot, but you should first of all improve your professionalism, your competencies. Perhaps, someday you yourself will be able to advance in the service and turn into a big, fat and stupid boss and then spoil your own son or daughter. Wealth is usually distributed among people in this way. Let's imagine that there is a very rich man who earned everything with his own labor. But if he spoiled his offspring, did not give him the proper upbringing, values, understanding of labor, then most likely all this wealth will be lost sooner or later. There will be a redistribution from the lazier to the more hardworking people. Money will flow from one to the other. This process is not as fast as many would like, sometimes it takes a change of several generations. But this will inevitably happen someday and there is no point in envying now. Wealth over time has the property of spilling out, like sand through your fingers. If you think that having $1 million from your rich daddy, it is very easy to turn it into $1 billion, then you are most likely mistaken. Investments are always a risk. Not everyone can even save $1 million that fell from the sky. This is confirmed by the example of numerous lottery winners, who after some time most often return to the same financial situation where they started. Inequality of wealth is always the result of money flowing from the less hardworking, less successful to the more successful and more worthy. Any artist from the show business can be used as an example. Why, for example, does the famous singer Taylor Swift earn tens of millions of dollars for approximately the same work, for which another unknown singer in a restaurant gets an order of magnitude less? You will say, unfair. They may sing equally well, their vocal and external data are similar. But any singer gets money for the fact that the audience listens to him. The more viewers want to listen to this or that singer, the more he will be paid in fees. The choice of the listener due to popularity should be respected. It is quite fair that everyone wants to listen to a popular artist. They give their money to whomever they want, this is 100% fair. Millions listen to Taylor Swift, and only tens or, at best, hundreds of viewers listen to a simple and unknown singer from a restaurant. This is where inequality comes from. First, become like Taylor Swift, go through this star path from beginning to end, and only then envy her fees. First, go through the path of an official, build a career, serve, please your numerous bosses, maybe even endure humiliation from them, lick your boss's ass, which requires moral effort, work on your days off, take responsibility for thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, and only then say that officials or politicians receive their high salaries in vain. Thus, justice is a very conditional concept, always relative. Even supposedly 100% fair phenomena accepted in society may be considered unfair by someone whose interests have not been taken into account. Remember, one of the 3 rules for achieving happiness is, there is no single justice for everyone in nature. Stubborn rejection of this obvious fact, unfortunately, often makes us unhappy, forces us to wage a constant and ineffective struggle, makes us nervous and upset. Paradoxical conclusions, friends. Perhaps you will want to argue in the comments. Think about it. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.